stop. Before you skip this video, I need to ask you one question. You've seen those a day in the life of ancient Rome videos, right? The guys wearing a toga, eating olives, strolling through the forum, maybe visiting a bathhouse. The sun is gleaming. The marble is gleaming. Everything is clean and beautiful and fine. Yeah, that is a lie. A gorgeous, cozy, completely sanitized, perfectly packaged lie. Because the thing they never show you, the thing your history teacher absolutely did not put on the PowerPoint, is this. Most ancient cities were running on nightmare mode. Not hard, not very hard. Nightmare. No saves, no respawns, no health potions. Just you versus a city that was actively, gleefully trying to delete your entire playthrough. Your history class gave you the highlight reel. I'm giving you the deleted scenes, the bloopers, and the footage the editor cut for being too much. Today we're ranking 5 ancient cities by how fast and how creatively they would have ended you. And I promise, by the end of this video you're going to feel genuine, bone-deep gratitude for living in the era of antibiotics and indoor plumbing. For each city, I'll give you 3 things. The vibe check, what people think it was like. The actual lore, what was really like. And the survival percentage, a completely unscientific but emotionally accurate number. Let's go. City number 1, Rome. The Rome, the eternal city, the granddaddy of Western civilization. At its absolute peak, around 100 AD under Emperor Trajan, it was home to over 1 million people. 1 million people. In a city with no electricity, no running water to most homes, no germ theory, and a waste disposal system that was mostly just vibes. Here's how history class sold it to you: togas, marble columns, senators giving speeches, aqueducts, the Roman legions, the concept of a republic, gladiatorial combat as entertainment, concrete. Yes, they invented concrete, and we still use it. Rome was glorious. Rome was eternal. Rome was the apex of human achievement. Now let me introduce you to the Suburra. The Suburra was Rome's main residential district, where the non-billionaires lived, which was basically everybody. And the Suburra was essentially a death trap in apartment form. The insulae, Rome's apartment buildings, were these massive multi-story structures. 6, 7, sometimes 10 stories tall. Built out of wood and cheap brick, packed together so tightly that sunlight barely reached the street. They also caught fire. Constantly. So often and so dramatically that Rome had a dedicated fire brigade called the vigiles. But here's the fun part. They were also part-time police, and they would sometimes show up at your burning building and negotiate the price of their help while your stuff was on fire. Is that extortion? I mean, yes. But they called it the market economy. So, Emperor Nero likely used the Great Fire of 64 AD as a real estate development opportunity. Ancient sources suggest he watched it happen. We can't confirm that definitively. We can confirm that he immediately built a massive palace on the cleared land. The man had vision. But fire wasn't even your biggest enemy. No, no, no. Your biggest enemy was the stairs. Because here's what those incredible Roman engineering videos never mention. The aqueducts, genuinely extraordinary, delivered water to public fountains, not to apartments. If you lived on the 7th floor of an insula, you were carrying water up 7 flights of stairs every single day. Same with your waste, which meant many Romans just threw their human waste out the window. I genuinely could not make this up. There was a Roman law stating that if someone threw something out of a window and it hit you, you could sue them for damages. The fact that this law existed means this was happening frequently enough to require a law. The streets of Rome smelled like what would happen if you locked 1 million people in a gym with no showers and then added horses. Because there were also horses and cattle, and you couldn't throw them out a window, so they just existed in the streets, contributing to the general sensory chaos. Survival rate, if you were wealthy? Actually not terrible. Villa with real plumbing, your own kitchen, bodyguards. Maybe a 60% chance of dying of something mundane. If you were middle class or lower, welcome to the gauntlet. Fire, collapsing buildings, crime, disease from the water supply. Lead pipes, by the way, the aqueducts fed into lead pipes in many homes, and food that may or may not have been adulterated with chalk and sand. Survival odds, 23%. And most of that 23% is pure luck. Rome was the GOAT, a legendary nation built on marble, blood, and lead pipe hydration. Your apartment's on fire, the rent's past due. Someone just threw something from floor 32. The vigiles show up like, nice blaze, bro. Pay us first or we let the whole district go. Welcome to Rome, population. Stress, the eternal city, eternally a mess. Energy shift. Let's talk about Mohenjo-Daro. where Rome was loud and chaotic and smelled exactly like what it was. Mohenjo-Daro, located in present-day Pakistan, built around 2500 BC, was disturbingly organized, uncomfortably well-planned. Most people have never even heard of Mohenjo-Daro, and that is a crime against history education. This city was part of the Indus Valley civilization, and it was doing things in 2500 BCE that most of Europe wouldn't figure out for another 2,000 years. Grid street layout, public wells, standardized brick sizes across the entire civilization, meaning they had building codes, centralized granaries, and, I need you to sit down for this one, a citywide sewage system, with pipes and covered drains running under the streets. In 2500 BCE, while Rome was still a swamp with a couple of huts in it, the Indus Valley civilization was so chill and so functional that archaeologists initially couldn't find evidence of massive warfare, giant royal palaces, or enormous religious temples. No glorified depictions of kings slaughtering enemies. Just a city, working, peacefully, with good drainage. Here's where the lore gets weird. Because here's what we don't know about Mohenjo-Daro, and the list is long. We don't know who ran it. No palace. No obvious king. No, here lies supreme leader whoever inscription. We don't know what they believed. Their script, the Indus Valley script, has never been deciphered. We have thousands of small seals with this writing. We have no idea what any of it says. And we don't know why it ended. Around 1900 BCE, the Indus Valley civilization collapses. The cities are abandoned. And nobody, I mean nobody, knows exactly why. Climate change? Drought? Invasion? Some combination? There's a site called the Massacre Site at Mohenjo-Daro where they found skeletons in the streets, huddled together, unburied. Some with injuries, leading to theories of a violent end. But other archaeologists think the city was already mostly abandoned by then, and these were just the last holdouts. The people who didn't get the memo, or refused to leave. Imagine being that person. No, I'm staying. The drainage system still works. I'm not going anywhere. And here is your epiphany moment for this segment. Your history education almost certainly spent more time on the Egyptian pharaohs than on the entire Indus Valley civilization, which, at its peak, had more people than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. We literally don't know the name of a single Indus Valley leader. Not one. And they were bigger. We build entire cultural mythologies around Egypt, while this larger, arguably more advanced civilization sits in the footnotes, waiting to be decoded. And we still can't read what they wrote. Which means somewhere in an undeciphered script, there are almost certainly incredible stories, laws, poetry, complaints about rent, and we have absolutely no access to any of it. That's not just interesting. That's haunting. Survival ODDS. 61% if a city is running as designed. 4% if you show up during the mysterious catastrophic collapse. The universe has a sick sense of humor about timing. Real quick, this video is brought to you by Sponsor, and I'm going to make this transition actually make sense because I'm a professional. We just talked about Mohenjo-Daro, a civilization so organized they had building codes in 2500 BCE, standardized bricks, systems, a civilization that optimized itself. And that's exactly what Sponsor does for your relevant product area. Just like the Indus Valley engineers figured out that good drainage prevents disease, Sponsor figured out that 2 to 3 sentence product pitch. Ancient wisdom applied to modern problems. Link in the description. Use code HARDCORE for discount. Okay, back to ancient death. Let's talk about the city that Rome was so terrified of that a Roman senator, Cato the Elder, ended literally every single speech he gave in the Senate with the phrase, Carthago delenda est, Carthage must be destroyed. Every speech, whether it was about farming subsidies, tax policy, his own grocery list, and furthermore, Carthage must be destroyed. The man was committed. Carthage was a Phoenician city-state founded around 814 BCE on the coast of what is now Tunisia. At its height, the dominant naval and trading power in the western Mediterranean. Rich, powerful, sophisticated, it controlled major trade routes, had colonies all over the Mediterranean, and produced one of the greatest military commanders in all of human history. His name was Hannibal Barca. And Hannibal crossed the Alps with elephants, to invade Italy from the north because Rome didn't think that was possible. Nobody thought that was possible. Hannibal did it anyway because he had main character energy and zero respect for conventional strategy. Here's the thing about Carthage that history class definitely did not cover. Almost everything we know about Carthage comes from Roman sources. Roman sources. The people who literally had a national policy of wanting Carthage destroyed. That's like learning about your rival from your rival's diary. Do you think the characterization is going to be fair? The Romans accused Carthaginians of child sacrifice, specifically burning babies alive in a ritual called the Tophet. This became the defining thing that made Carthage barbaric in the Roman narrative. But here's the twist. Modern archaeological analysis of the Tophet sites has found that many of the cremated remains are of children who died very young, possibly of natural causes, and were given a special burial. Some archaeologists now think this was a sacred burial ground for infants, not an altar of sacrifice. We can't be certain. The evidence is genuinely ambiguous. But we should probably be deeply skeptical of the people who literally had a Senate policy of destroy them, suddenly acting as neutral reporters on Carthaginian cultural practices. That right there is historiography, asking not just what happened, but who told us it happened and why they might have told it that way. That's the skill your history class should have given you but probably didn't, because it's messy and complicated and makes everything more uncertain. But uncertain is exactly where real history lies. The Third Punic War ends in 146 BCE. Rome wins. Carthage is completely destroyed, the survivors enslaved. Ancient sources claim they salted the earth so nothing would grow. That last part is almost certainly a myth. The Romans wanted the land for themselves, so salting it would have been counterproductive. But the myth persists, because the image of Rome being so furious they salted the earth is just too dramatically satisfying to let go. History loves a good over-the-top villain moment, even when it probably didn't happen. Survival ODDS, 55% in peacetime Carthage. Final boss sequence with no checkpoints during the Punic Wars. Hannibal crossed the Alps, elephants in tow. Rome was shaking its knees in the valley below. Man said impossible, and he said hold my wine. Crossed 3 mountain ranges in a straight battle line, but Cato's in the Senate, broken record on loop. Carthage must be destroyed, even during chicken soup, 3 Punic Wars later, and the city's ashen flame, but we're reading Roman sources, so who's really to blame? Athens. The birthplace of democracy. The city of Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. The Parthenon. Philosophy, theater. The very foundations of Western intellectual tradition. And also the city that executed Socrates, enslaved a massive percentage of its population, banned women from voting while loudly declaring they invented democracy, and, in one of history's most spectacular acts of collective unhinged decision-making, voted to invade Sicily in 415 BCE with enormous confidence and zero planning, resulting in one of the most catastrophic military defeats in Greek history. Democracy is great. Democratic decisions can still be absolutely unhinged. Both things are true at the same time. Here's how history class sold it. Athens under Pericles, roughly 450 to 430 BCE, is the golden version you know. The Parthenon being built. Sophocles writing tragedies. Herodotus inventing history as a discipline. Socrates asking people deeply uncomfortable questions in the Agora and refusing to stop even when everyone begged him to. Asterisk 1. Citizens meant adult male Athenians who owned land. Women couldn't vote. Foreigners, even ones who'd lived in Athens their entire lives, couldn't vote. And enslaved people, who may have made up 30 to 40% of the population, obviously couldn't vote. So when we say Athens invented democracy, what we mean more precisely is Athens invented democracy for a specific subset of its population, while the rest had varying degrees of zero input. Still historically significant, but a very different claim. Asterisk 2, the plague. In 430 BCE, a catastrophic epidemic hits Athens during the Peloponnesian War. Thucydides, who caught it and survived, describes symptoms that modern doctors have spent centuries debating. Best current candidate, typhoid fever combined with other infections. It killed roughly a quarter of the Athenian population, including Pericles himself. You know what makes a plague worse? Being packed inside city walls because you're at war and can't leave. All the rural population had flooded into the city for safety, creating the perfect conditions for disease to absolutely feast. Asterisk 3, Socrates. Your history class presents him as a martyred hero of free thought, which is accurate-ish. But let's be precise about what actually happened. Athens held a democratic vote, and the democratic majority voted to execute him for corrupting youth and impiety. He was offered the chance to propose his own punishment. He suggested the city give him free meals for life as reward for his service. The jury found this suggestion deeply annoying and voted for death instead. Was Socrates a genius? Yes. Was the execution unjust? By our standards, absolutely. Was Socrates also being a little bit difficult on purpose? I mean, almost certainly yes. Survival odds, 58% in peacetime as a citizen during the Golden Age. Dramatically worse if you're not a citizen. Completely chaotic if you arrive during the war years. Final city. I saved this one for last because it's the one that's going to break your brain the most. Tenochtitlan. Founded in 1325 CE on an island in Lake Texcoco in what is now central Mexico. Capital of the Aztec Empire. And by the early 1500s, one of the largest cities in the entire world. 200,000 to 300,000 people. Larger than London at the time. Larger than any city in Spain. Built on a lake. The Aztecs built chinampas, floating gardens, artificial islands of mud and vegetation anchored to the lake bed and held together by the roots of willow trees. They grew food on these, in a lake, using a hydroponic adjacent system that modern sustainable agriculture is actively studying because it was that effective. They built 3 massive causeways connecting the island to the mainland with removable sections that could be lifted to control water flow and create defensive barriers. 2 aqueducts bringing fresh water from mainland springs because the lake water was brackish. A complex canal system running through the city so goods could be moved by canoe. The city was essentially Venice, except it was built first and it was bigger. When Hernán Cortés's soldiers first saw Tenochtitlan in 1519, their accounts describe being literally speechless. One soldier, Bernal Díaz del Castillo, wrote that they thought they were dreaming, that they had never seen anything like it. These were men who knew Seville, who knew Barcelona, who had sailed the Mediterranean, and they thought Tenochtitlan was magic. Here's what history class compressed into a simple narrative of Spanish guys with guns beat the Aztecs. Cortés arrived with a few hundred men, formed alliances with the many peoples who absolutely hated Aztec domination, and then a smallpox epidemic, an invisible biological weapon the Aztecs had never encountered, devastated the population while the siege was ongoing. The city that fell in 1521 had already lost probably 30 to 50% of its people to disease before the final battle even began. That's not a dramatic military triumph. That's the tragedy of biological catastrophe followed by military opportunism. The Aztec Empire operated on a tributary system. Conquered peoples paid tribute in goods, labor, and sometimes people. Human sacrifice was real, practiced, and central to Aztec religious belief. The scale is debated. Spanish accounts are almost certainly exaggerated for propaganda purposes, but it was significant. And here's the historiography moment again. Spanish accounts of Aztec sacrifice were written by people with a vested interest in portraying them as barbaric because it justified conquest. Holding the full, complicated truth requires sitting with the discomfort of both things are partially true. That's what actually understanding history demands. Survival odds, 65% as a citizen during the city's heyday. Access to the world's largest market, universal education for boys and girls, sophisticated medicine, extraordinary urban planning. 8% if you're there in 1519 to 1521 during the Spanish arrival and smallpox pandemic. Timing, as always, is everything. Island city on a lake. He said that's not real. Causeways, canals, and a market built to deal. Bigger than London. Bigger than Rome ever knew. Built by people who figure out what water can do. Cortés showed up with a few hundred guys and a plan, but the real weapon was microscopic. Not the man. The history books handed you the gun and the sword, but a virus did most of the work. That's the hard truth, Lord. All right. Final leaderboard. Ranking these cities by how fast they delete you on arrival. S tier fastest death. Tenochtitlan, 1519 to 1521. Invisible pandemic plus active siege warfare. No contest. A tier, Rome lower class. Fire, disease, structural collapse, and someone may throw something at you from a window. B tier, Athens during the plague. 1 in 4 chance of dying from an illness nobody understands while also being at war. C tier, Carthage during the Punic Wars. Siege warfare is brutal, but at least you know what's killing you. Wild card, Mohenjo-Daro. Either the most pleasant ancient urban experience available to anyone anywhere, or an unsolved mystery that takes you with it. Here's the real thing I want you to take from this video. History is not a collection of facts. It's a collection of stories told by survivors, winners, and people with agendas. The cities we talk about today were not background sets in a movie. They were real places with real people who had complicated, messy, brilliant, ugly, extraordinary lives. When you learn to ask who wrote this and why, you stop being a history consumer and you start being someone who actually understands how the world got to where it is. And that skill, unlike surviving ancient Rome, is actually useful in 2025. Like and subscribe if you want more history that goes where your textbook was afraid to. Comment which city you think would murder you the fastest. Personally, mine is Rome, because I know myself and I would absolutely be in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. See you in the next one.